Okay, so even though I'm changing the motor and transmission in this thing within probably the next month or so, I wanted to go ahead and get the 6-cylinder running. So I hot wired it. For whatever reason, the ignition switch doesn't seem to even send any voltage to it. It looks like the varnish in the tank is about ready to turn. I cranked it over till we got oil pressure and fuel in the fuel filter. It's the original fuel. I don't know what it's all about. And then I've hot wired it. Positive side of the coil, positive side of the battery. Little spark. I did have to clean the points up a little bit. And then I got a little bit of gas, poured it down the carburetor. And by a little, probably a little too much. So let's just see what happens here. I see a ton of blow by, so I'm pretty sure the reason we're changing all this is because the motor's garbage. So you guys remember my old truck, the 64, the Lakeside 64? Same motor was in that thing. It's one thing I love about these 6-cylinders. They got zero power, but they'll run, doesn't matter how big they are. I think we may have displaced a couple of mice in the exhaust system. Okay, it just shut off by itself, so I guess that's it. But at least we know the motor runs. So what I was able to learn just by looking at it is it's been 12 volt converted, has a 12 volt alternator in it, 12 volt coil. The motor appears to be rebuilt, but it does not sound rebuilt. I mean, it could be. Let's see here. Oh no, that noise we're listening to when it's running is the water pump is junk. So just a couple of the things you should look at if you're looking at buying an old car. That water pump is garbage. You can see the pulley, the bearing in it is just garbage. So that noise we hear that sounds like the front of the motor grinding is just the water pump, metal on metal. It's a crazy wide belt right there. Now this is interesting. So what they did, you know, on another tech tip I told you how to excite an alternator. You run the ignition wire through a dash light in one side of the dash light bulb and out the other side of the bulb, and then to the exciter wire on the alternator, which is the white wire right here. And what that does is if the alternator is not charging, that light will come on. There'll be feedback. So you'll have a generator light or alternator light on your dashboard telling you either threw a fan belt or the alternator failed. This person knew that, but didn't think to put that light on the dashboard to indicate to the driver. He just used it as a diode in the exciter wire. So when they put this thing together and wired it with all the same color wires, they yeah, it's a sketchy little wiring job. But what they did was just started the car, got it running, it was charging, and then all of a sudden it wouldn't shut off. So they cut that wire and put that little light bulb inside there, which is funny because now the car's not running and the light bulb is illuminated under the hood. Pretty funny. But if we take off our hot wire that I made to make the car run, it will shut that down. It's the same as turning the ignition off. Or not. Well, that would probably explain why the battery's always dead. If the car's not running, yeah, that makes perfect sense. If the car's not running, that light is always on under the hood. Pretty funny. So if I unplug it from the alternator, so what he has there is constant 12 volts going to one side of the bulb and the other side of the bulb going to the exciter wire. The alternator is not spinning, it's sending out a ground signal back up that wire. 12 volts on one side of a bulb, ground signal on the other, makes the bulb illuminate. Interesting. The creativity of backyard mechanics never ceases to amaze me. But I've seen worse. Okay, I'm going to give this a pressure wash under here. Doesn't really need it, but going to anyway. So first thing I'm going to do is a full disc brake conversion. I went to CPP out in Santa Fe Springs yesterday and picked it all up. And then the disc brake conversion is going to become power disc brakes. I'm going to relocate the master cylinder to the firewall so that it's serviceable. This isn't really a show car or anything. The guy just wants to drive it. The aftermarket power brake booster that you can put on the frame to keep the original pedal inside the car. It's a nightmare to fill up or check or anything. You have to put residual valves on the brake lines, and it just poses problems in the future. So we're going to go with it on the firewall right there. It won't look bad. And then we'll hunt down a motor and transmission and do that next. See you guys.